Chapter 1041. The physical body that Gu Xingyin reconstructed was simply heaven-defying. In addition, she had already confirmed her relationship with Gu Yinsui. In the remaining days, she wholeheartedly focused on increasing her strength. When she was in the soul formation stage, she established a sect on a mountain peak that was rich in spiritual energy, not far from the empty mountain, Purple Clouds Dao sect. In the beginning, no one knew about this unknown sect. But her sect's name was grand. What was even rarer was that Gu Yinsui commanded the entire demon race to publicize the Purple Clouds Dao sect to the entire cultivation world. In an instant, the Purple Clouds Dao sect became famous. With fame, there was naturally trouble. But those who came to find trouble openly and secretly were all slapped down the mountain by Gu Yinsui. Thus, there were rumors that the Purple Clouds Dao sect was built by the Demon King for his wife. Gu Yinsui himself called it for fun. No one had heard of the sect master called Jinghong Fairy. Even within the demon race, there were many people who had opinions about this. Those demon race had long heard that the Demon King had a lover who was like a treasure. None of them had seen Gu Xingyin's strength, but many had seen Gu Xingyin's face. In this way, Gu Xingyin's reputation as a femme fatale spread more and more. The person in question did not have any reaction to this. She even stopped Gu Yinsui. Their mouths are on those people's bodies. You can control their mouths, but can you control their hearts? Gu Xingyin smiled and comforted the indignant disciples. Her face was calm. In this cultivation world, there is always only one way to make people shut up. While everyone was looking at this so-called Purple Clouds Dao sect, as if they were watching a joke, Gu Xingyin welcomed the lightning tribulation for her advancement. The entire cultivation world was shaken by the powerful lightning tribulation. After asking around, what? Was this the legendary Purple Clouds sect master, who only had a fairy-like appearance? 1 strike, 2 strikes, 18 strikes, 49 strikes, 56 strikes. The more they counted, the more shocked they became. In order to advance to the divine transformation realm, one had to face 49 lightning tribulations. Advancing to the body integration stage required a total of 64 lightning tribulations. In order to advance from the form synthesis stage to the legendary crossing tribulation stage, one had to go through 81 lightning strikes. Looking at the number of tribulation lightning bolts, there were already more than 49 of them. Could it be that this man was progressing to the body integration stage? In the past 5,000 years, only one cultivator had successfully broken through the soul formation stage and reached the body integration stage. That person was the current ruler of the demon clan, Gu Yinsui, who possessed the bloodline of the Red Fire Qilin. His strength was also the main reason why he was able to control the demon clan in such a short time. And now, was there going to be a second one? Those who had previously looked down on the Purple Clouds Dao sect's sect master felt an indescribable pain in their faces. The other party had already come this far. Regardless of whether they succeeded this time or not, they were already ahead of them. And those youths who were hesitant because of the recent rumors also stepped on the road to the Purple Clouds Dao sect. Gu Yinsui was the only one who had no doubts about his master's ability to survive the lightning tribulation. She was originally a crossing tribulation stage powerhouse. Even if her spiritual power was only at the body integration stage, her strength was not comparable to ordinary body integration stage powerhouses. In the rolling black tribulation clouds that no one saw, Gu Xingyin's hair fluttered in the wind. She faced the aggressive tribulation lightning calmly without any sadness or joy. Chapter 1042. Not only was the sect leader of the Purple Clouds Dao sect the Taoist companion of the Taoist emperor, she was also a combined body fusion stage cultivator. In the cultivation world, it was not without reason that power decided everything. With their own power and the Taoist emperor Gu Yinsui's unconditional support, the Purple Clouds Dao sect was developing at a terrifying speed. The cultivation world situation of being monopolized for thousands of years was broken. Those large sects wanted to stop it, because the rise of the Purple Clouds Dao sect had harmed their interests. But they did not have the power to stop it. Another 500 years later, the Purple Clouds Dao sect, which had become one of the top sects in the cultivation world, once again welcomed the lightning tribulation. 81 lightning tribulations. The only tribulation stage cultivator in the cultivation world in 10,000 years. Because of this, the Jinghong fairy's name became famous, and the Purple Clouds Dao sect became the only cultivation holy land in the cultivation world's eyes. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the mission. The system notification rang out. Gu Xingyin smiled. She took in a few nominal disciples and taught them the cultivation techniques that had long been buried in the river of time 10,000 years ago. The Purple Clouds Dao sect's foundation made countless sects speechless, and at the same time jealous. After successfully grooming the next generation of successors, Gu Xingyin retreated behind the scenes and became the Purple Clouds Dao sect's pillar. With such a tribulation stage cultivator, no one could shake the Purple Clouds Dao sect's position. And everyone knew that there were only two places to meet the Jinghong fairy. The Purple Clouds Peak, which was covered in snow all year round, and the Taoist sacred ground Empty Mountain. In fact, the frequency of her appearing in the latter was even higher. Everyone knew that the Jinghong fairy and the Taoist emperor were a pair of Taoist companions, and the two of them were inseparable. It was even said that when the Taoist emperor was 3,000 years old, the Jinghong fairy used her own blood essence to create a heart-connecting talisman for him. With this talisman, even if the two of them were in different places, they would still be able to communicate telepathically. She could even forcefully transfer the damage to herself when her Tao partner was fatally injured. In the past, everyone envied sect master Zi Shao for his good looks. He had caught the eye of the demon emperor, and from then on, he had a meteoric rise. But now the target of envy was the demon emperor. What did he do to make the Jinghong fairy, who was the best in the cultivation world in both appearance and strength, so loyal to him? However, some things would always happen between the two of them. The others were just making wild guesses while chatting. Gu Xingyin spent 10,000 years in this world with her little disciple, until the blue sea turned into mulberry fields, and a new cycle of reincarnation descended. The two of them held hands, closed their eyes together, and stepped into a new cycle. This was an exceptionally luxurious room. The huge crystal chandelier overhead took up almost half of the entire ceiling, and the furnishings in the room were all the latest limited edition models from major international luxury brands. The entire room was pink in color. Whether it was the princess doll that was as tall as a person in the corner, or the wardrobe that was full of girly dresses, it was clear that the owner of this room was a little princess who was doted on by everyone. Now, this little princess was lying on a big bed that was big enough for her to do a few somersaults on. She had mesmerizing big black eyes, long eyelashes that were like neat and fine brushes, a delicate little nose, and a pair of lips that were as beautiful as cherry blossoms. When she smiled, two cute little canine teeth would be revealed, and she looked quite harmless. However, that was just how it looked. Chapter 1043. Gu Xingyin knew that when this cherry blossom-like mouth opened, those two cute and harmless canine teeth would pierce deeply into one's flesh and suck out one's blood. The dark red tongue licked the corner of your blood-stained lips. It was a charm and danger that humans couldn't resist. This girl with an angelic face was called Wei Xingyin Luo. During the day, she was a student of St. Rhodia High School. At night, she was a pure-blooded princess of the Weixing family, a vampire who walked in the darkness and fed on human blood. Now, Gu Xingyin had arrived in Wei Xingluo's body. Gu Xingyin was a little surprised to know that she had once again received a mission about vampires. However, when she finished reading the plot seriously, she understood that this was completely different from the vampire world she had experienced before. The living habits of the vampires in that era were closer to the aristocrats of the Middle Ages. They were arrogant, powerful, and did whatever they wanted. They disdained humans and existed arrogantly. They even clearly separated their lives from the lives of ordinary humans. But this world was different. Ordinary humans didn't know about the existence of vampires at all. Vampires quietly integrated into the human world and coexisted with them. Even the changes of time made their physique and blood evolve, and they were no longer afraid of the sun. As the noblest pure-blooded vampire, Wei Xing even had to go to school like ordinary humans. Humans and vampires coexisted peacefully with each other. Today was Sunday, so there was no school. Gu Xingyin lazily stayed in the Weixing family's castle. She slowly organized the plot of this world. The female lead of this world, Wei Xing, was the princess of the Weixing family, a pure-blooded vampire aristocrat. In this generation, the Weixing family had two pure-blooded heirs. The eldest son, Wei Xingliang, and the second daughter, Wei Xingluo. Although they were the eldest son and the second daughter, they were only born a few minutes apart. That's right, Wei Xingliang and Wei Xingluo were twins. However, a vampire's appearance was determined by their power. Wei Xingliang, the elder brother, had absorbed too much of his mother's power when he was in her womb. As a result, Wei Xingliang had the appearance of an adult man and had been in charge of the Weixing family's business empire overseas. As for Wei Xingluo, she had maintained the appearance of a 16 or 17-year-old girl. According to the tradition of the vampire family, if there were two pure-blooded members in the family, one male and one female, then in order to maintain the purity of the family bloodline, it would be best for these two to become partners and continue to be the heir of the family with the purest bloodline. This was a very common occurrence among purebloods. For example, Wei Xingluo's biological parents were a pair of siblings. Gu Xingyin was speechless. It was only because vampires didn't have to worry about genetic mutations that they dared to do this. Vampires had long lifespans and unlimited wealth. According to the original plan, Wei Xingluo would have been engaged to Wei Xingliang, who had returned to the country after 3 years of schooling. Afterwards, they would have gotten married as soon as possible and given birth to an heir. After the heir grew up, she would be able to put down her burdens and enjoy life to the fullest, just like her parents. Her life, from the beginning to the end, would not have any problems. In short, she was a winner in life. Chapter 1044. But the winner in life met another girl with a sense of justice. Vampire hunter Xiao Zhanggui. Strictly speaking, Xiao Zhanggui wasn't even a qualified vampire hunter. She was a girl who was very curious about all kinds of supernatural things since she was young. At the age of 15, by chance, she obtained a special ability to see through all non-human disguises. It was this special ability that led her to be found by the Vampire Hunter Association and let her join them. Xiao Zhanggui, on the other hand, had been brainwashed by the Vampire Hunter Association to believe that vampires were the dirtiest and most evil creatures in the world. Her biggest goal in life was to eliminate all vampires in the world. However, she didn't have any talent. The Vampire Hunter Association valued her ability to sense vampires at the first instance and wanted her to serve the entire association. And when she transferred to St. Radia High School, she recognized the pureblood vampire, Wei Xingluo, at first glance. Xiao Zhanggui kept going against Wei Xingluo, and Wei Xingluo didn't know why, but she felt that this human was really interesting and always used a teasing attitude to tease her. But this vampire hunter with no ability actually accidentally broke into her territory when she was at her weakest. Xiao Zhanggui didn't have any good feelings towards vampires. Seeing Wei Xingluo unconscious on the ground, he didn't hesitate to stab a special silver tool into her heart. She didn't die, but her body was taken to the Vampire Hunter Association and was permanently sealed. When Wei Xingluo came back from abroad, what she took back from the Vampire Hunter Association was her sister's cold body without any warmth. After Gu Xingyin finished reading, she felt a bit strange. It was too unreasonable. She asked, "System, I think it's very strange." "System, if the host has any questions you can ask." Gu Xingyin said. Wei Xingluo is still a pureblood princess. When she's at her weakest, shouldn't she be staying in her castle? And with her noble status, shouldn't there be vampires guarding her? That Xiao Zhanggui is such a weak vampire hunter. How did he come to the place where she was unconscious and almost killed her? The system was silent for a moment. After a while, it finally answered Gu Xingyin's question. In some worlds, due to various reasons, in order to follow a certain plot, all unreasonable aspects will be weakened. Host, please don't look at things with logic. Without logic. Then, Gu Xingyin's heart skipped a beat. Then can I not follow logic when completing the quest? The system said. As long as it doesn't violate the character settings, it won't be a big problem. Gu Xingyin nodded and seemed very satisfied. That's good. The system. He had a feeling that something bad was going to happen. Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock on the door, and the butler's voice sounded. Your Highness Ing Luo, His Highness Liang will return tonight. What? Would Wei Xing Liang return? Gu Xingyin was shocked. If she remembered correctly, Wei Xing Liang had been abroad all this time, and only rushed back when he found out about his sister. The two siblings rarely saw each other after growing up, and their relationship wasn't very close. Why did he suddenly come back? Chapter 1045. Gu Xingyin asked with some surprise. Brother came back so suddenly? The housekeeper outside the door answered very respectfully. His Highness Liang just informed me. He said that he will have dinner with you tonight. Gu Xingyin looked up at the time. It was 3:30 in the afternoon. I know, she replied. The siblings hadn't seen each other for 6 years, so it had to be a bit more formal. Gu Xingyin was no longer lying on the bed, but got up and opened the wardrobe. As vampires with eternal life, their wealth could no longer be measured by ordinary standards. At least Gu Xingyin knew that if any luxury clothing brand in the world released women's clothing, as long as Wei Xing Ingluo took a fancy to it, it would inevitably appear in her wardrobe the next day. She swiped her fingers and finally chose a small pink dress that wasn't grand or gorgeous. The clothes-fitting design perfectly displayed her graceful figure, and the soft pink clothes made her skin look even fairer and more translucent. Her hair was loosely tied up, revealing 2 knotty strands of hair hanging by her cheeks. A sweet and cute little girl instantly appeared in the mirror. Sitting in the living room early, Gu Xingyin showed great interest in Wei Xing Ingluo, who claimed to be the most powerful heir of a pureblood vampire family. She had felt the power in this body before. After all, she was a pureblood, and although Wei Xing Ingluo's strength couldn't be considered top-notch, it was still very good. That's right, system. What about the skill draw of my world? The system didn't talk nonsense, and after the white light flashed, it gave Gu Xingyin a pleasant surprise. A cup of Princess Brooke's blood, plus the princess's innate charm skill? Gu Xingyin silently looked at the cup of bright red blood, not knowing what to say. In terms of preciousness, the power of this cup of blood was without a doubt. Vampires were noble in terms of bloodline, and most of their power came from the bloodline. This was also the reason why the Wei Xing family could persist in the marriage of pure blood members. There was no doubt that the blood of the Queen of the Brute clan, one of the 13 clans, was an irresistible temptation to any vampire in this world. Most importantly, Gu Xingyin didn't drink blood. No matter how many times she had been a vampire, or how many missions she had completed, she had no interest in such smelly things. Unlike Gu Xingyin, the system could not understand why Gu Xingyin did not speak for so long. The system was still very straightforward, so it asked directly, Host, is there a problem? Gu Xingyin pointed at the cup of blood. I don't drink blood. The system seemed very surprised. Host, who said you had to drink it? Gu Xingyin. A white light flashed from the system, and Gu Xingyin could only watch as the cup of blood turned into a blood-red light and entered his body. Almost in the blink of an eye, she felt that her body was full of power. Something was boiling in her body, and her waist-length hair grew uncontrollably until it reached her knees. Gu Xingyin used almost all of her strength to suppress the growth of her body and continue to maintain the appearance of a young girl. If there was such a big change overnight, it would be difficult for her to explain the reason. Fortunately, she was sitting alone in the living room, and the housekeeper and maids did not dare to disturb her unless she summoned them. Therefore, the scene just now was not seen by anyone. Suddenly she sensed something. Her eyes moved, and she looked in the direction of the door. He was here. Chapter 1046. That kind of attraction and intimacy that came from their bloodline made Gu Xingyin want to rush up, pull open the door, and take a good look at her own twin brother. She tried her best to resist this almost irresistible impulse, and then stood up. The door was opened from the outside, and under the respectful gazes of the housekeeper and servants, a figure wearing a silver-gray long windbreaker appeared at the door. He was very tall, with a slender figure, and under his messy hair were deep and sharp eyes. His nose was straight, and below that were perfectly shaped thin lips. Wei Xingliang also immediately turned his gaze to the place that tugged at his heart. The intimacy of blood, especially for a pure-blooded, was the most irresistible feeling. Then, he saw a small pink figure rushing towards him, at an extremely fast speed. Wei Xingliang subconsciously wanted to avoid it. He didn't like strangers getting close to him. But he immediately remembered that this wasn't anyone else, but his sister Ying Luo. Just as he paused, that soft figure crashed into his arms. Wei Xingliang's body reacted faster than his mind, and hugged the figure in his arms. Gu Xingyin hugged him tightly, and took a deep breath of the familiar lotus fragrance. Then, she raised her head and looked at Wei Xing with her large eyes. She smiled coldly and said, "Big brother, you finally thought of coming back to see me. I missed you so much." Her glass-like eyes were filled with undisguised joy and attachment. Wei Xingliang was startled. He hadn't spent much time with this sister. He vaguely remembered that the two of them had a very good relationship when they were young. He had been warned by his parents since he was young that Ying Luo was his sister and fiancée, and that he had to take good care of her. But after he was 10 years old, he was sent abroad, and the two siblings hadn't seen each other for a long time. Even their communication was very rare. He thought that Ying Luo would feel unfamiliar with him, but he didn't expect that she would still stick to him like before. Thinking of this, a secret joy rose in Wei Xingliang's heart. This was his sister, the only one in the world who had the same blood as him, Wei Xing Luo. He lowered his head, and gently planted a kiss on Gu Xingyin's forehead. He couldn't help but reveal a smile. "Ying Luo, big brother missed you too." Gu Xingyin's ears twitched when he heard his deep voice. He thought to himself, even his voice is so seductive. She reached out and touched her ears. Blushing slightly, she asked embarrassedly, "Brother, why did you suddenly come back?" Wei Xingliang looked at her bashful expression and snickered inwardly. He got closer and closer to Gu Xingyin, lowered his voice and said in her ear, "There's nothing big going on in the company during this time, so I came back to stay for a while. And also came back to see my Ying Luo." He looked at his sister's ears with satisfaction. Because of his words, her ears were dyed with a thin layer of red. There was a layer of pink on her sparkling white skin. It was indescribably cute and seductive, making people want to take a bite. In fact, that was exactly what Wei Xingliang thought. Not only did he have such thoughts, he didn't even try to hide his desire, as he leaned over and bit her. Feeling the tingling pain in her ears, Gu Xingyin looked at Wei Xingliang in disbelief. Was it really okay to act like a hooligan in front of his sister, whom he hadn't seen for several years? Oh no, she wasn't just his sister, she was also his fiancée. Thinking of this, what he did didn't seem to be too excessive. Chapter 1047. Wei Xingliang reluctantly let go of the earlobe that had been rubbed by his teeth, until it was bright red. Wei Xingliang reluctantly used the tip of his tongue to gently sweep the white earlobe. He felt the person in his arms slightly tremble because of his movements, and he laughed deeply. "Shy." He stretched out his finger and lifted Gu Xingyin's chin. Sure enough, the other's face was already completely red. He still felt it wasn't enough, and gently bit the corner of her lips. "Being so shy won't do, my Ying Luo." He laughed. "You are my fiancé, you have to get used to it." "Get used to it? Get used to what?" Gu Xingyin was a bit speechless. She knew that vampires had always been very indulgent with their desires, but she didn't expect the other party to be so open. Looking up and seeing the other's smiling face, Gu Xingyin resisted the urge to grind her teeth. She thought for a bit, and then smiled sweetly. She stood on her tiptoes and heavily bit Wei Xingliang's lips. She controlled the degree, and didn't break the skin and bleed. But the pain didn't lessen at all. Copying his actions, she licked the place she bit. Gu Xingyin raised her eyebrows and smiled at Wei Xingliang. "Brother's taste is also much better than I imagined." Wei Xingliang's eyes instantly darkened. He laughed lowly. "Is that so? Then Ying Luo, why don't you properly taste it again?" His figure invaded Gu Xingyin's domain without any hesitation. His aura swept through Gu Xingyin's domain without restraint, until the latter was utterly defeated. This man was really petty. "Gu Xingyin, who had recovered from her weak legs with great difficulty, glared at Wei Xingliang with some annoyance. Wasn't it just because he was stronger than her now? Just wait. She would pay him back one by one in the future. Wei Xingliang could only laugh out loud. His return to the country was originally a temporary plan, but he didn't expect to receive such a big surprise. Ying Luo was much more interesting than he had imagined. The next morning, Gu Xingyin woke up on time. She opened her eyes and immediately realized that she was sleeping in a man's arms. Her head rested on his arm, and her waist was tightly held by a large and powerful hand. Her entire body was almost lying in his embrace. The memory of last night came back to him. Just as she was about to go to bed, Wei Xingliang called her to his room. What? Sleep here? Her eyes widened. Wei Xingliang said seriously, You and I are engaged. Is there a problem? Gu Xingyin was speechless. What he said made sense. She was speechless. What made her even more speechless was that the vampire butler, who had watched her grow up, did not object at all. He even seemed to be very happy as he moved her daily necessities into the cool room. Anyway, the place was big, and it would not be crowded with one more person. As a result, Gu Xingyin successfully lived with her brother under everyone's delighted gazes. The memory stopped here. What are you thinking about? His deep voice still had the lazy hoarseness of the morning. It was extremely sexy. Gu Xingyin was awakened early in the morning. Hearing this, she replied, Nothing, I should go to school. As if dissatisfied with her perfunctory answer, Gu Xingyin only felt her waist tighten. Then her body turned, and she was lying on Wei Xingliang's chest. Their eyes met. Nothing in. Chapter 1048. Gu Xingyin struggled for a bit, then gave up and said, Brother, put me down, I still have to go to school. Wei Xingliang ignored her words, only reaching out a hand to caress her lips. Tell me what you were thinking just now, and I'll let you go. Gu Xingyin. This man, why was his temper so overbearing? She told the truth. I miss my own bed. The hand on her waist tightened again, and the man's snort of laughter came. It seems that brother did something to making Luo dissatisfied? Gu Xingyin looked at the time again. If she didn't get up now, she would really be late. Although being late wasn't a big deal for her, she had something important to do today. Gu Xingyin hurriedly begged for mercy. No, brother, you're the best. Everything is good. I'm just not used to it for a while. Seeing that she really seemed to be in a hurry, Wei Xingliang reluctantly let her go. Sleep more. You'll get used to it. Gu Xingyin nimbly got up and hurriedly went into the bathroom to finish her business. Goodbye, brother. Wei Xingliang propped his head up on the bed, watching his sister quickly go out the door. Gu Xingyin finished her meal, and under the escort of her family's driver, she went to St. Radia High School. St. Radia High School. Just from this impressive name, it was obvious that this wasn't a simple school. That's right, this was a legendary, aristocratic school among aristocratic schools, the top aristocratic high school. Sure enough, it was very rich. This was the feeling Gu Xingyin had as she walked from the school gate to the classroom. She went to her own class and quietly sat in her seat, waiting for Xiao Zhanggui's arrival. That's right. Today was the day that Onmyoji Xiao Zhanggui transferred to St. Radia High School. Although Xiao Zhanggui's family background wasn't bad, she didn't have the ability to go to St. Radia High School. This was the qualification that the Vampire Hunter Association had specially applied for her. After so many years of dealing with vampires, the Vampire Hunter Association had a good understanding of this race. They knew that their lifestyle was not something that could be described as simply extravagant. Naturally, they would not let go of a place like St. Rhodia. Who would have thought that they would actually catch a pure-blooded by chance? There was no morning self-study here. The bell for the first class rang on time. Gu Xingyin sat quietly in her seat, waiting for Xiao Zhanggui's arrival. Students, there's a new student in our class today. Let's welcome her. The gentle voice of the homeroom teacher sounded from the podium, but the response of the students below was rather perfunctory. Only a few people followed suit and clapped their hands. The homeroom teacher's expression was a little awkward, but she didn't dare to say anything. None of the students who could come to school here had simple family backgrounds. She couldn't afford to offend any of them. Xiao Zhonggui stood uneasily on the podium. Looking down at the well-dressed students, he said, "Hello, everyone. My name is Xiao Zhonggui. I'm very happy to be able to come to this class. Her self-introduction was suddenly interrupted. Her eyes widened as she excitedly pointed at Gu Xingyin. Vampire. The eyes of the entire class fell on her and Gu Xingyin. However, too many people just reflexively followed her gaze. After glancing at Gu Xingyin, they began to look at Xiao Zhonggui as if she was an idiot. Vampires? Did this newcomer read too many hot-blooded anime novels? Chapter 1053. For Wei Xingliang to meet him personally. It was naturally a vampire of equal status. With such status, and a vampire known for his extravagant lifestyle, Gu Xingyin could already foresee the scene of a tycoon. The result was as expected. The address was in the castle of another pure-blood vampire family, the Beitang family. When Wei Xingliang and Gu Xingyin arrived, the entire castle was already brightly lit. Faint noises could be heard from inside. A waiter respectfully came forward and led the two of them through the castle's gate. The scene before them appeared before their eyes. Almost at the same time, Wei Xingliang turned sideways, blocking Gu Xingyin's line of sight. "Don't look." Then, a huge pressure belonging to a pure blood swept through the entire hall. The vampires who were partying on the dance floor all knelt down, trembling. They didn't understand why this master was suddenly angry. "Get out of here," Wei Xingliang said coldly. None of the vampires dared to say a word, and they hurriedly left through the gate. In the blink of an eye, the only sound left in the hall was the music. The noisy and rhythmic music suddenly stopped, and at the same time, a lazy male voice sounded from the second floor. "You're still so cold, Liang. There were quite a few beauties at the ball just now." Gu Xingyin looked up and saw a boy with short silver hair nimbly jump down from the balcony on the second floor. "So you brought someone?" The silver-haired boy glanced at Gu Xingyin, a trace of surprise flashing through his eyes. "This is the princess of the Weixing family, Missing Luo, right?" "Hello, I'm Beitang Sun." Gu Xingyin smiled and greeted him. Beitang Sun was a famous playboy among the pureblood nobles. It was said that he changed girlfriends faster than he changed clothes. However, he was powerful and had a noble bloodline. Even though he was known as a playboy, there were still countless female vampires who wanted to get close to him and have a good time with him. Wei Xingliang didn't want his sister to have too much contact with him, so he changed the topic. "Where are the others?" This others was the representative of the other two pureblood noble families. Beitang Sun looked upstairs. "They're all here. They're upstairs." There were only 4 pure-blooded vampire families left in the world. The Weixing family, the Beitang family, the Fujiwara family, and the Suzumiya family. Of the 4 clans, the Weixing clan was the most powerful. Therefore, when Wei Xingliang proposed a meeting, the other families could not refuse. Fujiwara Shizuru from the Fujiwara family and Gu Xingyin from the Suzumiya family had both met before, which saved him the trouble of introducing them. After the 5 of them were seated, Wei Xingliang went straight to the point. "I'm here today to talk to you about the Vampire Hunter Association." Shizuru Fujiwara was an extremely charming and seductive woman. She raised her eyebrows lazily. Chapter 1062. Wei Xingliang acted quickly. Since he had already made preparations, he left for the headquarters of the Vampire Hunter Association on the 3rd day after the agreement with Gu Xingyin. Of course, Gu Xingyin stayed in the castle. Although she couldn't go, she had a system that could report her movements at any time. "Host, the 2 sides have already clashed. The Vampire Hunter Association is no match for them. The Research Institute has been uprooted. Host, your man is so handsome." Gu Xingyin. The first part was fine, but what the hell was with the last part? Wei Xingliang's trip took a long time. After the headquarters of the Vampire Hunter Association was destroyed, there were still many survivors who had escaped. These people couldn't be left alive. If you didn't get rid of the roots, they would grow again. It took almost half a month for the remnants of the vampire hunters, hidden in every corner to be completely wiped out. After this matter was settled, Gu Xingyin had nothing to do with it anymore. She stretched lazily on the sofa. Recently, she had been getting lazier and lazier. The wedding of the two arrived as scheduled. The wedding of a pure-blooded aristocrat, coupled with the Weisheng family's influence in this world, was so grand that it attracted everyone's attention. Of course, they didn't hold the wedding in a church, nor did they ask a priest to be their witness. A pair of vampires asking a priest to bless them. Wasn't that a joke? Although some of the guests present felt a little strange about this, they were only puzzled in their hearts. After all, it was someone else's wedding. Perhaps they wanted to do something different. Gu Xingyin got married under everyone's witness. During the day the guests dispersed. The nightlife of the castle had just begun. Gu Xingyin and Weisheng Liang changed into more exquisite gowns. Under the witness of all the vampires, they intertwined their necks and pierced their fangs into each other's neck. This was the true mating ceremony of the vampires. Feeling the other's blood flow into their bodies, their cold hearts beat with each other's heartbeats. Gradually, the two hearts beat as one, and they could even feel each other's thoughts. Releasing his grip, the bite wound healed completely. The vampires below bowed in unison in the direction of the two of them, congratulating them. Next, it was the start of a beautiful night. The young, beautiful, and low-level vampires loved such occasions the most. Because here, they could see many adults that they would never see on a normal day. If he was lucky enough to have a good time with those big shots, and if they were happy, they would take him under their wings. That would be equivalent to reaching the heavens in a single bound. Gu Xingyin was dragged outside by Weisheng Liang to the rooftop of the castle. Gu Xingyin looked at him in confusion.